Now to some new concerns today regarding the timing of a $400 million payment to Iran in January. Made at the same time, the Iranian government released a group of U.S. prisoners. Now, the State Department on Thursday acknowledged the payment was conditional on the release of the detainees.
We felt that it would be imprudent not to consider that some leverage in trying to make sure that our Americans got out.
In basic English, you're saying that you wouldn't give them the $400 million in cash until the prisoners were released, correct?
That's correct.
Let's bring in Kansas Republican Congressman Mike Pompeo, the congressman that sits on the Intelligence Committee, one of them. Thank you so much, Representative, for being here today. When you listened to John Kirby, what was different, you think, either in the words or in the tone that came from that news briefing?
Well, this was radically different than what the President of the United States has told us for months. Back in January, the President talked about this transaction. And then again recently, he condescendingly spoke to the nation and said we didn't pay ransom. But there it was for you, the State Department admitting that $400 million would not have left the United States had there not been prisoners released. You pull out a dictionary, any ordinary definition of ransom would include an exchange of value for the release of hostages. That's what happened here. The president lied to the American people about the fact that there was a ransom payment made for the release of the 4 American hostages.
Well, as you know here, John Kirby didn't use the word ransom.
No, sir, he didn't use the word, but he explained it just the way the dictionary does.
And how did the president lie then? You're saying that he lied.
Yeah, he told the American people and Congress a different story. He's done it all along with respect to his dealings with the Ayatollah. He told us lots of things that weren't true about the arrangement in this case. He told the American people condescendingly, he smirked and said, there's no connection between this money leaving and the prisoners getting returned to the United States. But we know his own State Department says that's not true.
Well, let's go to what the president actually did say, since you're alluding to him and what he said in the past. And this is what President Obama said earlier this month when he was talking about this very issue of the prisoners and the payment. Let's listen to that.
Pay ransom. We didn't here, and we won't in the future. Precisely because if we did, then we would start encouraging Americans to be targeted.
And what the administration is saying here, Representative, is that this money, this $400 million, part of the $1.7 billion that is originally Iranian money for a certain transaction with the United States that never came to fruition, so it's a return of that money, therefore not a ransom because not U.S. taxpayer money.
Well, first of all, the $400 million was money that was transferred from a previous regime in Iran. But the $1.3 billion is your money, sir. Richard, that is not Iranian money. It is interest, according to the president, at least. I'm not sure what to believe anymore. But according to the president, it was interest for that payment. That interest would have had to have come from appropriated funds. Those would be U.S. taxpayer dollars. And the president seems to hide behind the fact that he used cash. But that's not the wire transfer that was illegal. It was the transfer that was illegal.
Talk about that,
because you send money to the Iranian regime.
You were quoted in the Heritage Foundation magazine, as you know, and you do say, and I'll just go straight to the headline of it, you are saying here that those who worked in the Obama administration, the employees, that they should face some jail time for this situation. Now, when you do say that, what is the law that they may have broken that you're alluding to?
So today it is illegal under Treasury policy and regulations and under statute for any United States citizen to transfer assets from the United States to the Islamic Republic of Iran. That happened here. And we've asked lots of questions. We don't know if there was somehow a waiver granted. We don't know who signed the legal memorandum authorizing this transaction. We've sent letters asking for answers to these questions. We've not been provided them. But make no mistake about it, somehow the president thought if he did this deal in cash and hid it from the American public by keeping it off the books, that somehow that made the transaction lawful. But the illegal part isn't the nature. It's not as if it matters if you handed them gold bullion or cash or you sent them an electronic transfer. The illegal part of the transaction is a transfer of U.S. assets to the Islamic Republic of Iran. That happened here, and we need to figure out exactly who did it, why they did it, and who authorized it.
And again, the Obama administration saying this money was Iranian money to begin with. This was not U.S. taxpayer money, which is the basis of your argument. But let me finish with this while we still have some time. Here, Representative. I do want to cover this issue, and that is when we look at some of your fellow Republicans who are critical of this deal, of this transaction that had happened, the money being returned as well as the hostages, saying that you might be going too far. And what are you telling your fellow Republicans when they say no legal action needs to be taken here, but certainly criticism of what did happen in this money move as well as move of these hostages?
Richard, the arguments that the administration are making are simply laughable. Every American watching this show today understands that if you transfer money and hostages come home and they are connected in the way that the State Department admitted on Friday, this is a ransom payment. And there are Democrats who believe that too. This isn't a partisan issue. It's about American foreign policy and the law. And if we'll abide by the law and have sound foreign policy, we don't put Americans at risk today. They know the price tag in Iran for every American that they take. And after this exchange of money, we know they've taken more American hostages. This is exactly the reason we have a policy against ransom, and that's exactly the reason what the president did was a mistake.
Representative Pompeo, thank you so much for your time today. You have a good weekend.
Thank you, Richard.
You betcha.
You too, sir.
Some people might ask, what's the big deal? Our government paid money for hostages. Well, here's the big deal. Go ask the surviving families whose sons and daughters were kidnapped by terrorists and demanded a ransom. There was the parents of some of these victims of the kidnappings worked hard, sold their houses, put together millions of dollars to pay the ransom, only to have the State Department tell them, no, that's against our U.S. government policy. We don't pay ransom for hostages, and we're not going to let you do it. So the terrorists chopped their heads off and cut their heads off. Those parents of those victims of terrorism need to go on TV and bitch about Obama paying $400 million ransom for hostages, but not letting them pay their own money to get their sons and daughters back before they had their heads chopped off and cut off.